Science at Utah Tech University for 26 years and holds a master's degree in physics and computer science. He's taught AI and machine learning for many years and is helping launch Utah Tech's new post-baccalaureate certificate in applied AI and ML, correct?
Correct.
And
good job.
This fall, so we welcome Curtis. Thanks, Curtis.
Thank you, Scott. All right, so thank you for having me here today. I hope that somewhere along the way that something I say inspires you to think and be motivated to use AI some or more than you already are using it at this time. I have room at the end for questions, but I would certainly field questions as we move along. Please just get my attention. I'm used to students shouting out and saying, hey, I have a comment or a question. Sometimes they don't even raise their hand, so just go ahead. Okay, so I think you already heard a little bit about me that I teach at the university here. Today I want to focus on applied use of generative AI. I'm trying to be specific when I say generative AI and isolate that as different from other kinds of artificial intelligence that are out there. And again, my goal is to help you see that AI can help you and that you want to play with it. All right. So what you should expect is I'm not going to make you go through the math and the equations that my students have to go through in order to use artificial intelligence. Instead, I want you to see, get a rough picture, a mental picture of how it works, and for you to be able to feel like you can safely use it by outlining for you some of the basic safety guides that you should be following as you're using it. And we're not going to go like read research papers or anything like that. So if you want to do that, come take some classes. All right. So just to let me get to know you a little bit better and understand the audience here, can you tell me who wants to save time at work? Okay. Oh, sorry. Me too. Right? Awesome. All right. Who has tried some AI tools? Awesome. So 2 or 3 of you, would you tell me what kind of AI tools you've used? ChatGPT? Gemini.
Oh, Copilot.
Grok? Siri?
I haven't tried Grok, but yeah.
Okay.
Copilot. But our
Copilot?
Copilot is limited, right? Because our organization limits what we can do with it.
It depends, right?
Ours does.
Okay. Cool. Notebook LM as well?
And Otter AI, is that it?
Otter AI I've heard of. I'm not familiar with it, but I've heard of it.
I like Claude.
Claude? Okay. Why do you like Claude better?
Because it's friendly.
It's friendly. Okay. So I've scattered a bunch of images throughout these slides. They're meant to show these friendly AIs helping you out, okay? All right, and then who is unsure about how safe it is to use AI? Okay. So I might be able to help some of you, and some of you might feel like I need to accelerate, so just go ahead and tell me to accelerate if I need to, based on your responses here. Okay, so as you may or may not know, you're using AI all the time right now. Whenever you use your phone and Siri and so forth, you're doing some smart queries there. Whenever you're using a text editor and is doing auto suggestions for correcting your grammar, your spelling, or how to complete your sentences, all of those are AI techniques. I use Google Translate a lot, which is also an AI tool. Spam filters we've been using for decades now, but they're all based on artificial intelligence, machine learning techniques. Anytime you've done photo enhancements or Google Photos tries to group all your photos together for an individual, say, if you looked at this, my wife keeps coming up. Like, I get to see lots of slideshows of my wife. It's awesome. Anyway, all these kinds of things are AI you're using every day. Now, these aren't necessarily exactly the target for our discussion today, but those are kinds of AI that are out there. Okay. What we're going to talk about specifically is generative AI. Generative AI, the basic idea here is that you have models that are trained on a lot of example text. So for example, imagine reading all of the internet and taking account and keeping a statistical record of all of the words and sequences of words that were out there on the internet. I don't know the internet's actually the best source of good language, but anyway, imagine all of that combined together. So that's what we're doing with generative AI, is we're getting this statistical model that knows what words belong together in what order. And then it will help us, given a certain collection of words, predict what other words should follow it. It generates the next words based upon those predictive patterns. So it's all statistics. Good? Okay. Now, I don't want you to think that AI is magic. You just type it in there and there's like some person or some actual intelligent thing behind the scenes that's answering your questions. It's not magic. Instead, it's actually just big pattern matching. As we said, it's these statistical models. So here I have a visual of what if this is the pattern that we put into a pattern matching system, and it has in its database these 3 different possible outcome patterns. Which one is most like it? Most like the input pattern. The one on the left. It's not exact, but it's like it, right? And so AI is just doing this kind of pattern matching, finding things that are similar and saying, yeah, let me complete the pattern because I know what you're asking about, and so I'm going to find something that's like it. How we doing? Okay? So our simple mental model that we want to think of when we're talking about generative AI is that we have some input. Usually that input is text in the context of what we're talking about today. The model is all these statistical collections of the different strings of symbols that belong, or words that string together. And then it uses our input and then completes the sentence or completes the body of text that we start with our input. So the output is just that completion. Okay? Simple input-output function. Go back to your middle school math classes where you learned algebra with functions and so forth. You probably don't want to remember that. I have good fond memories of those days. Okay, so this is probably a slide that's for those of you who haven't actually used one of the chat bots that we've been talking about today. But you might, for example, have a prompt and you say, summarize the main benefits of using electric buses in city transit systems. Is that relevant for you guys?
Sure.
Okay, I was trying to hit on a few examples that might be relevant. I don't know your field though. So, okay, so what is the completion for that? What is the statistical completion that should come out after that string of characters? If that was the input, right, if that's our input, and we feed that through a model, what should the output look like? Over here on the right-hand side.
A consensus of what is already out there.
A consensus of what is already out there. So whatever that model was trained with, all the text it looked at, whatever it thinks the answer to that question is, statistically, is going to be kicked out to us. So does this sound like it's pretty cookie cutter response? Is it reasonable? Again, this isn't my field.
Yeah.
It could have errors in it. I don't know.
It's reasonable.
Okay, we're okay?
No hallucination.
Little? Okay. What about this prompt here? We ask it to write 3 quick tips for commuters to reduce congestion during rush hour. What would you say those 3 tips are?
Don't travel during rush hour.
Don't travel during rush hour. Good.
Take public transit.
Take public transit. Carpool.
Hey, there you go. No public transit though. But still.
So 2 out of 3 matched, right? So as experts in the transportation field, would you judge this as a jewel that you got out of the AI, or would this be junk?
Usable.
Usable?
It's usually, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's truthful at this point.
Yeah, it's a starting point at least, right? But we don't expect it to be magically just correct all the time. So you have to use your domain-specific knowledge to know whether it's actually giving you a jewel.
First response for a follow-on question.
First
response for a follow-on question.
There you go. There you go. Okay, and then I am not good at sketching or drawing. I learned all my drawing abilities in my physics classes where we can draw dots to represent point masses and arrows to represent velocity. So sometimes I want a little picture to back things up, and all the pictures in this presentation were generated in this fashion. So you can ask it to generate something for you, and then it can generate you a picture. May or may not be what you're looking for. May take several iterations to get it to kick out something you're willing to accept and use.
Sorry, I know I might be jumping ahead, but since you're talking about images,
Uh-huh.
what I've noticed, like say, sometimes it hits it like right spot on.
Yeah?
But then the next time I ask for something, it's not spot on, but I have found that as I try to guide it, it's not helping. Like it just gets in this spiral of like, it's just getting worse instead of better. And so I have to like back off and drop it of like, okay, clearly we can't figure this out right now.
So that experience of asking, not getting what you want, asking for refinement, it actually deviates further. You ask for further refinement, it deviates more. I personally call that the rabbit hole. And if I'm not aware of what I'm doing, I can spend way too much time before I realize I should have just backed off and started all over from scratch because this isn't working. So let's go back to this slide really briefly. Why is it that sometimes you ask a question and the output is good, and you might ask the same question and the output isn't good?
We don't know.
Okay. So here's the explanation. Remember, the model is just a statistical representation of the likely outcomes. And so when it comes time for when you ask a question and it comes time for the model to actually generate an answer, they actually use a little bit of random numberness in their selection. It might be that there's multiple words that could follow the words that you had. So they'll basically roll a die and pick one. And then now that you have that extra word added on, it'll roll a die and pick the next word from a bunch of words that are likely. The words that are more likely to show up, and the ones that are less likely to show up. But in general, it can produce different outputs because there's actually randomness built into the generator process. So it doesn't always select the most likely answer, it selects, but the most likely answer is more likely to be selected. You can control that in some of the interfaces you have with a thing called temperature. This isn't in my slide. If you set the temperature to 0, that's like something that's frozen, absolute 0. So it actually always picks the most likely outcome. If you increase the temperature a little bit, it allows it to wiggle around a little bit more. So if you see people, I'm not even sure if you can do it within like ChatGPT's interface, but it would be somewhere in your settings for that conversation. I usually access not through ChatGPT, but I write my own applications, and in those applications I can tell it exactly what temperature I want. But some interfaces do, so I'm sorry, I can't tell you exactly how to do that right now. If you get temperature too high, then it's really likely to hallucinate. It's going to take all those low probability branches. Okay, cool. So these are some of the kinds of things we can expect, and you're aware that not only can you generate text and images, but you can generate audio files. There's lots of different things you can generate. My students use these AI agents to generate software code to try to complete their assignments, which means we have to be on our toes and make their assignments harder so the AI can't do them. It's this little arms race that we're going through right now. Okay, so what kinds of things, what categories of things can we expect the AI to help us with? These are some top-level use cases I can think of. Productivity, that's where you're going to save time, right? It'll help you do things that are just grunt work. Let it be the grunt. None of you are grunts, right? You're all high-level.
Dang right.
That's right. That's right. I like to think of myself that way, but there's a lot of grunt work I end up doing. Okay. We also have creativity. Tasks where we're trying to come up with something new. This is a case where you'd want to set the temperature a little bit higher, so it tries to be a little bit more creative. And then we have just analysis. You have a bunch of data and you want to do some analysis of that data without after reading through it yourself and doing the computations yourself. Okay? Okay, so let's talk about a few productivity things. So drafting emails. I've actually gone to the mode now where I write all of my emails by asking the chat I tell it what I want to say in my email and make it sound good, right? Well, I use things like make it sound professional or make this sound not professional when I'm trying to identify with the student who doesn't want me to talk in big words and so forth, right? So, but try to make sure that my communications are concise. We can use it. For example, a lot of you have probably seen that the transcript for today's discussion here will probably have some AI that actually transcribes all of the text. So it's just using an AI to take voice to text. And then they probably have some sort of tool that will say, summarize the meeting, and it'll probably make bullet points and basically everything that's in the slides show up there. Okay, lots of other kinds of things that are available there in your productivity. Okay. So for those of you who haven't used AI, so for example, I could go into the AI chat, and this is Gemini here for those of you who don't recognize it, and say, need to write an email to a customer who missed the bus. Help me explain the bus schedule system and its approximate nature. Okay? So now again, I feed it a prompt for a specific task, and now it comes off and gives me this nice fleshed out message. Now I think it's nice. I'd actually have to read it, right? And understand if I like the response that's in here. Now it could be that it's giving responses that are not appropriate for my particular busing system, right? And my city. And so I might need to edit it, or I might even just need to say, that's too formal. Make it sound more gentle. I don't know. Yeah? More friendly, that's what I should have said. Okay, so now instead of the bulleted list, it's more like a business memo-like look. It's more conversational in its response. Again, all of this, if I were actually going to send it, I would need to do what with it?
Read through it.
Read through it. Excellent. And then edit anything that I don't like, right? But this is, again, a first pass, a good, quick first pass that gets me closer to what I need. And so I don't have to spend quite as much time with my communications. And notice that I'm getting really sloppy with my spelling and grammar these days. That's not just because of AI, that's just because of years of grammar and spell check in the editors that we use, right? And so I'm getting worse and worse at it. But nice that the prompts get cleaned up for me. Okay, you doing okay? Okay, so are there any of the other productivity tasks on here that you would like to try an example of? We feed a prompt and see if we can get any results out of this. Anybody have one or a different one?
Second to last.
Okay, create quick briefs from long docs. Okay, I'm gonna go back to ChatGPT instead. And one of the things that I have to deal with at university is we have a bunch of university policies, right? So let's take utah.tech.edu policy library. I did click that, right? There it is. Okay, let's see. Let's look on academic standards and about student records here. So here we have a multi-page PDF that has a bunch of stuff that I might need to know about, but I don't want to actually read. So I'm going to take that PDF and I'm going to say, please summarize the important points for a faculty member in this document. Okay, so I'm asking it to go download the document and summarize it for me, right? And I don't think that's any shorter. Oh, here at the end, so it's giving me a bunch of stuff about the policy, but at the end it gives me this responsibilities for faculty. So this is the part I really cared about, right? Okay, so I should have actually read the answer there. Okay, so I know now that I need to submit midterm and final grades on time. I can only use incomplete in certain situations and so forth. So the important thing here is that somehow the input that you give to your generative AI has to include the content that you want it to summarize. And one of the ways to do that is just to paste it into your chat. I use a lot more copy paste than I used to. I'm trying to figure ways around that. But anyway, that's one way you can do it. Cool. Thank you. Other questions? Or anyone want to follow up on this? Okay, we're good? Okay, so creativity. All right, so now creativity is where you actually want to get a variety of solutions out of the chat because you're not sure exactly what you want, but you want to explore some options. And so this, like we said, is a good place if you can try to turn up the variability within the model. So we can be brainstorming for me, I can brainstorm things like, I want to build a new assignment about topic X. And I'm not sure what to use as my sample problem I'm going to have my students work on. Give me a handful of ideas that are at the level that a junior or senior in a bachelor program should be looking at. And then it can kick out a bunch of ideas for me. In fact, I did that earlier today. And from there, I can then ask it to explain more depth on some of them, or I could ask it to get rid of a couple and expand on a couple more, and so forth. So I can actually get it to go out and generate options for me. Does anybody use their AI in that way at this time? Yeah?
Yeah, I helped my son-in-law had a business opening, and the company had got the line, I call them lawn dart signs, you know?
Yeah?
Done in time for the opening. And I used to do some stuff in PR and that kind of thing. But I went into the chat GPT and asked it to make the designs for that and put it in the format that the company would take. And they printed up the lawn darts and they looked super professional. And that is something that would have, in the old days, taken me probably a couple days because it would have to go to a graphic designer and put it in the right format and da-da-da-da-da. I mean, it cut out so much red tape. Like, if this was all done within an hour, it's sent over to the place.
And you used its creativity capability to actually come up with the content, and then you used its time-saving productivity features to actually format that in the way that you needed to send it to the sign company. Awesome. Anybody else have a cool story? Yeah.
I've become a much better grant writer.
Much better grant writer.
Better and way smarter. Well, and I just take the grant application questions, put it into chat GPT, and it kind of tells me what they're talking, because so many grant questions, I usually know what they mean, but sometimes they mean something different than what I think they mean. So it's really helped me to understand the full picture of the question.
Cool, so it helps you be more on target with your responses to the grant questions. Do you also have it help you draft responses?
Yes.
Yes?
Yep, copy and paste.
Awesome. I had to fill out a faculty form yesterday, and so I gathered all the information I wanted to go into the form. I said, put this in the right spots for me, right? And then I had to proof it, but it was a lot faster than writing it up fancy myself.
To say it's really good too if you're trying to compare two different things.
Uh-huh.
For example, just what a group insurance plan to what an individual health coverage insurance plan, they're two different things. One's really new, and you just what's the difference between these two things, and it gives you a nice little chart.
Awesome. Yeah.
So this isn't creativity, but we read a lot of lawyer language.
Oh, fun.
I love the notebook because it puts it into like a podcast format with different voices. It goes through where anybody could listen to it and see what they're trying to tell you. I mean, you should still read your documents before you sign them, but at least you know what you're looking for.
Right, right.
And our group, where's Andy? Andy, some of the presentations that he mentioned are on our site. He added some of the Notebook LM podcasts to it. You wouldn't guess that it wasn't somebody hired.
Nice. Yeah, so my understanding, I haven't used Notebook LM a lot myself, but you basically upload your documents into it, and then there's all these features for summarize it, put it in text, put it in video, put it in a podcast. You can tell what kind of language you want it to use when it's doing its summaries. It can point you back to the original document where it got the information from.
Yeah,
So like our FDA assurances, that's an awful document to read. Sorry.
I'll get right at so I did.
So it breaks it down, and I know which ones for a senior center, which items I need to look for. So when legal comes to me and says, what is this document and what do I need to be concerned about, I actually know, because it's huge.
And FTA documents are what we use Notebook the most for, because if we have a sub-recipient come to us and say, hey, how does this really fit FTA guidance? We know what our piece is, but FTA guidance is so nebulous and so big that Carlos has put all of FTA's documents and our documents into Notebook LM. We ask it a question and say, hey, it's here and here and here and here and here, so we don't have to sit and do Control F to find what we're looking for.
Right. Can you tell me what FTA is? Because to me, that's like Field Technical Assistant in robotics. So.
I know. It's Federal Transit Administration, so the funding most of us are.
Federal Transit Association. Administration. Oh, so since it's a federal administration, that means that some bureaucrat somewhere wrote all this stuff, right? Okay. They had to show off their years in law school.
Yes, 10 pages to 60 emails.
Okay, gotcha. Awesome. Again, I hope that through this discussion, more than anything, you're being inspired to use it more, even if more means more than nothing, right? And you go out and figure out good ways for you to use it in your realm. Okay, and then analysis. So to me, this is one of the trickier aspects. So what we did with my policy was an analysis of sorts, right? Read through and give me a summary of that document. You can also give it collections of numbers like in spreadsheets and ask it to help you figure out some information about the spreadsheet. Any kind of large collection of data, which we've been talking about some of these large textual data, I would just say be careful when you ask one of these models to do numerical predictions for you. They're language models generally, so unless they have a subsystem that is specifically added onto it to handle numerical questions, you might get interesting things like 2 + 2 is 5 kinds of things, because again, with the temperature not at 0, it might be predicting a response that isn't actually the right response. But it happens sometimes. And so be careful with numerical stuff. Now, on the other hand, I know that I can tell ChatGPT that I wanted to analyze a spreadsheet, upload the spreadsheet, and I can tell it to use code to do the analysis. And now it's actually going to write, its output is actually to write a program that opens a spreadsheet, does the calculation I want, and gives me the answer back. So as long as it doesn't mess up writing the code to do the analysis, then it actually can give me a correct numerical result. So you might have to go a little bit further than just say, look at it as words. Okay? Also, don't ask it to predict something that it has no way of knowing. Like, don't ask it what the stock price is going to be tomorrow.
Lottery numbers.
Lottery numbers, yeah. I mean, you might as well do that for lottery numbers. It's just as likely.
You probably can set the temperature by letting the whatever you're using to set the temperature to, right? Or no? Will it understand that?
Let's try it. Let's try it. So, what is the best? Let's see. What's the best candy bar? So without trying to set temperature, what's it going to tell us?
It's a fun time.
I just want one best candy bar. Make a decision. Tell me again what the best candy bar is. Now it's in that chat, right? I'm going to take this prompt here. I'm going to feed it into a brand new chat. Ooh. Okay. Now I am in my account, right? And my account has the chat right here where it just told me that it was Snickers. And so some of that information might be bleeding over into this new chat. Let's try this. Snickers? Wow, the Snickers should know that. That sounds like an ad in the making, right? Okay, so I asked it to set a higher temperature and asked the question again. So it cranked up its creativity dial, it says, and told me Twix now. Oh. So while you can't explicitly from the chat prompt set the temperature, you can tell it to be more creative, in which case that's going to dial up the probabilities for it's okay to try other things. It's more likely to try things that aren't the most likely. Just because if you tell somebody to be creative, they're going to be a little bit more wild in their answers, right? So.
There, on Gemini, it does say, it at least gives a reason. It says Snickers is often cited as the world's best-selling candy bar with billions of dollars in sales annually.
So is that like when Elf is in New York and he finds the place with the world's best cup of coffee? Just because they say it is? Yeah. Sorry.
In your opinion, who do you feel is the more superior AI? Copilot, Chat, or Gemini?
Now you're asking me to actually make a decision myself, right? So I believe at this time that OpenAI has invested more than anybody else. OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, I think they've invested more than anybody else. I don't know what it'll look like tomorrow, but right now I feel like they have a lead. Google's trying really hard to catch up because, I mean, they've been the gorilla in the room for 20 plus years, right? Yeah.
What about this new one, this Marathi?
Marathi?
Yeah, I've heard there's a lot of investment going into that, and something's going to pop here in the not too distant future.
I'm not familiar with that. I'm not up to date on that one.
It's a Miracle Lab or something like that.
Okay. So.
There's no product yet.
Okay. So these models are generated by collecting all this information, right? And then training on that in order to collect the statistics. So as better data sets get made available, and as more compute time is made available, and more sophisticated compute algorithms get made available, we're actually getting this cycle where the new models are coming out very, very frequently. Like between the first few OpenAI models, for example, it was a couple of years between them, and now we're talking about releases every 6 months from a particular vendor, which means there's some vendor releasing something pretty much every week at this point in time. So they are leapfrogging each other, but I feel like OpenAI has invested just a little bit more in the infrastructure so far. I'm curious what's going to happen because at some point Microsoft's going to stop letting them use their servers. So. Sorry.
It does let you set it to 0.
Does it?
Yeah, and it says, meaning directed development, got it, with temperature set to 0, which means no creative wandering, just post-corrected for consistent answers. And then it will give me Vienna, Austria as the best place, but then all the tests is to do it. So, and it continued with temperature set at 0.
Oh, cool. Thank you for experimenting and reporting back. Cool. All right. So I just have a few articles that I found that said, hey, generative AI is helpful for productivity, creativity, and analysis. I think you all are on board with that idea. So there's a few case studies here. If you want to go look over the slides later, you can look at them. Or do you want me to go over them? Okay. We've already been doing a quick demo. We've been playing with ChatGPT and Google Gemini, right?
How do you upload a file to it?
How do you upload a file?
Try like copy and paste it.
Cool. So if you are on the free version of OpenAI, I don't know how to upload a file other than copy paste. Or if it's available like my policy was as a URL, you can give it the link to it and it can pull it directly from there. But if it's a file on my computer, the only way I know to do it is that I'm on the $20 a month paid plan. I can create a new project. Where'd it go? And then within that project, I can add files to it. And I can upload as many files as I want. And now it has those files as part of its context as it's answering my questions. So this is like the Notebook LM ability to upload files, right?
Okay, so somebody back there said they compared two different,
Two different documents.
yeah, or two different, just like information, just like if you copied and pasted. How would you do that if you were doing a copy and paste? Compare this to this.
So if I were doing copy and paste, I would compare two bodies of text.
Curtis, can you repeat the question so people can hear?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, the question was, I want to compare two bodies of text with the copy and paste technique. And so how would you do that? So for me, I would go make a file and say, please compare these two bodies of text, and then paste one of them here and paste one of them here. This is the first body of text. This is the second body of text. And then I would probably come down here and say, please compare the differences for me. Something like that. So I just use an external editor that's a little bit more convenient than their web editor. And then just copy all that and paste it into the chat.
Sweet, thank you.
Yeah.
Just hit the plus button there to give you options of things to add even on the free version.
Oh, really? Okay.
It does, she's right. Yeah.
Thank you for the education.
Yeah.
Okay, so then it's just connected to this chat, not to the project itself. Thank you. So yeah, use the plus button. Okay, how are we doing? What time is it? Ooh. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes about staying safe. In the graphic here, I just wanted to point out that it's the AI that's in danger and we are the lifeguards. Okay? All right. So when you're sending data to one of these chatbots or any generative AI, you've got to remember that you're sending text to some foreign organization that's not your organization you're working for and not your personal self. You're sending information across the internet. And one of the reasons OpenAI has a good lead is because they got the first wave of people using it. So they've got all sorts of inputs and outputs And from that, they can actually understand and get information about when this text is input and this text is output, whether the user liked it or not. And from that, they've been able to train additional data. So they're keeping your information. One of the reasons it's free is so they can get your information and keep it. Even if you're paying, unless you've got an exclusive license with them where your organization's data is not kept, you're letting them keep your data and they're using that to train their future versions of their model. So don't put anything in there that you wouldn't just go ahead and post like on Facebook for everybody to read, right? People still use Facebook? Instagram. Chat? No, let's see. Snapchat is different. TikTok? Yeah, if you wouldn't post it, just public it for anybody to read it, you wouldn't send it out in an email to anybody and everybody in the world, then don't send it to one of these. So that includes like personal information you'd rather not have it have, but also includes any of your sensitive information that your organization has. I assume that would include things like employee files and employee names and hire dates and social security numbers and all that kind of stuff. Financial materials, right? Okay. Yeah, don't send your bank account number. Okay, so anything that should be kept as private, don't send it across. Is that clear? So sometimes when I'm actually doing that communication, the message I send, I just put blank placeholders for some of that sensitive information and then let it write the form of the message I should send, and then I go ahead and fill in the information when it comes back. There might be a capability for your organization to actually get an arrangement, an enterprise level arrangement where your data is kept safe. Okay? So make sure that if you're using one of these chats or AI agents, that you're only using one that you trust, and that you're only sending non-sensitive data to it. And that should be a policy throughout your office, right? At least with offices, you should have some organizational structure to that. Does that make sense? Okay, we're not trying to be restrictive, we're just trying to be safe. Okay, and without the human in the loop, the AI isn't going to stop you from doing it. All right. This is all just repeat information of what we just said. Okay, now the next things you need to be aware of, and we've talked about these a little bit, but there could be bias or skewed patterns that are in the data or in the models that you're using, because the data that was used to collect it might have biases in it. And then not only that, but the algorithms themselves might end up selecting biases out of the data, even if the data wasn't biased to begin with. This is all still new. People are still working on it, right? And so don't trust it too much. So from your perspective, this is one of the reasons you read it, come out of the models, to make sure that it doesn't have any unintentional bias in it. You're the human in the loop. All right, and then accuracy. This is our hallucination stuff, where we want to verify that things that come back out of it are actually legit. I know in my early days I was trying to have it help me write some academic papers, and so it started writing the bibliography for me. It gave me a list of 10 wonderful articles that supported my thesis. Only none of them actually existed, right? I wish those papers existed, because they would have been awesome for my research, but they didn't exist. And so make sure you're being careful and don't let it hallucinate on you. It's so confident when it's wrong.
I just read an article that they were trying to figure out the hallucination situation, and the article indicated that it's because how it's been used, AI hasn't been allowed to just say, I don't know. It keeps searching and searching to the point, like you say, like it'll make something up as opposed to just saying, I don't know. Is that
so the article that you're referring to, I'm just going to repeat for everybody. Yeah, is one where, because the models are trained to give an answer, whether it actually knows the answer or not, it doesn't know how to say I don't know. And so one of the reasons it hallucinates is it needs to be confident that, yeah, this is the answer. more than that, statistically, if it says, yeah, this is the answer, and it's right 98% of the time, it gets a really high scoring. Because 98% of the time is right. If it didn't guess on the things that it didn't know, it would only be right 80% of the time. So it actually scores better because of the way it's trained, because of its training criteria. So, yeah, beware. It'll be confident, so you have to be the judge. You're the lifeguard. Okay? Here's a couple of examples. I'm trying to judge our time here. What time am I supposed to? 12. At 12. So I still have 12 minutes?
Yeah, 12 minutes.
Okay. I assume I'm standing between you and lunch, too, so I won't go over. Okay, so some examples of bias. For example, you might have a resume screener that rightly or wrongly looks through resumes and it thinks that everybody who comes from Harvard must be better than anybody else. And so it only gives you back the applicants that came from Harvard. And that would be a bias because Harvard's a good school, but it's doing the wrong kind of ranking and not looking at more of the parameters that are in the resume. And whether that would be intentional or not, the AI agent could do such a thing. It could also look at other kinds of demographic information and select based on race or ethnicity when it wasn't supposed to, right? Just based upon maybe where people live. And it could be introducing bias that you don't want in your system. So be careful. Watch for, you are watching for patterns where it's wrong.
Can you ask it if it's biased?
You can ask it and then it will make up an answer. Unfortunately, I think those kind of introspection kinds of questions, personally, I don't think are very useful. Because it's just going to respond in the way that it statistically was trained to respond. So, no. You can, if you're doing this resume screener though, and it gives you a list of these are the top 3 applicants, you might then be able to go back and ask it why, and hopefully can identify the parts of the resumes that caused it to select those 3. And then you can look and see if there was bias in those selection criteria.
Some more effort on your part.
Yeah. Yeah. You're the lifeguard still. Yeah.
But could you, like in that situation, could you like upload and say, here's my criteria, or here's what means the most to be ranked then based on education, job experience?
So I think that's a great idea. That's the way that I would do it if I were not being sloppy and lazy, right? I would say, okay, here's the criteria that I want you to sort on, and I might even give it weightings. Say this is more important than that by, this is 50%, and this is 30%, and this is 20% of my ranking. Please now go and rank these applicants and give me back the 3 best according to my ranking. Right? The more detail you give it, the more it can do what you're actually asking.
And to add to the prompt, if you put in, like, as an HR professional doing the hiring for 30 years, and tell it who you want to be, which perspective you want to use, then it can go back.
So just to repeat, give it context about the decision-making process it's trying to help you with. If you're in the HR office, then you're going to give it a little paragraph at the beginning explaining to it you're an HR officer with this kind of experience. You're going to make the best decision that abides by all of the laws of Utah. I actually asked a prompt once, and it went off and researched a bunch of Utah laws and then came back and gave me an answer before it gave me the response.
I think it's especially important if that's not who you are, because it's the perspective of a different role.
Yeah. Tell it what perspective you want it to take,
Exactly.
regardless of what your perspective is.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. All right. And we already talked about misleading data and URLs and so forth, right? Where it just starts hallucinating stuff. So just check. If you actually get back a list of URLs, click on them, right? In a safe browser. You're not with IT, are you? You just offered to help me with the computer earlier, so yeah. Okay. All right. So let's see here. So again, with your privacy and compliance, for us at the university, FERPA is a big deal. That's protecting student information. HIPAA is important in the medical field. There's lots of different privacy guidelines you have to follow. So make sure that you're doing things in compliance with that. Okay. So let's go back to our rules of thumb. If you wouldn't post it on a public forum, don't paste it into your AI. The human, you, must review and separate the jewels that it gives you back, the good stuff, versus the junk. And then finally, make sure your legal or IT people vet tools before you use them, so that you're not just pasting organizational information somewhere where it's actually not trusted. Okay. Okay. Let's see. I think we'll get to the end here. All right. So we've been talking about some of these issues as we go along. This little graphic has 3 elements to it. We're going to talk a little bit about prompting, what you, the human. We're going to talk about making sure that you, the human, are in the loop, and that you get started and go advance your use of AI beyond where you're at right now. Okay. Okay. So when you're asking questions, and we've brought up some of these issues as we go along, when you're prompting, make sure that you state the goal and the audience. So this would be part of the result needs to be what an HR person would give me back as my result. That's part of your audience. I am a supervisor. I need to make a selection on who to hire, or at least who to interview out of this collection of resumes. Provide context constraints, and you might even then say, for example, when you give me a list, I want you to give me a list of the top 3 applicants, and for each applicant I want you to tell me their name, their school they went to, their job experience, and their most recent job that they're coming from. And actually tell it the template for what you want the output to look like, so that it actually can give you exactly the information you're looking for. If you wanted to do specific things, like don't give me jargons or a bunch of pronouns, but be specific in your responses, you can tell it what to do. Okay, and then we talked about iteration, right? I think back here in the back, after you get a response and you want to refine it, ask for ask those refining.
Spend an hour on it one time.
An hour? Yeah.
Back and forth.
I won't tell you about my first argument. Don't argue with the chat. You won't win. I did get it to the other day tell me, okay, let's get out of this rabbit hole. I'll start over like you told me to. So anyway, sorry. So here's a prompt. Write something about project management. Okay, now this is a bad prompt. Can you name a few things that are wrong with it?
Super bad. It's like way too broad.
Way too broad, way too little.
Good starting point.
Management about what? Right? Anyway, there's a lot of missing information here. And so you might get back something like this, which I don't think Agile and Waterfall mean to you what it means to me as a software developer.
Yeah.
Right? And so not a great response. On the other hand, if you go and say, here you are, you're advising a new team leads in a university IT office. My goal is a 1-page skimmable checklist for planning a 3-month web refresh. Redoing the web page, right? Over 3 months. Constraints, I only want bullet points. Give me 8 to 10 items. I want bold action verbs. I don't want any jargon in this. I want to know who owns each item, who's in charge of each piece of the 8 items we're working on. Simple risk check and review cadence. Deliver it in Markdown. Again, Markdown probably doesn't mean anything to you. It's a formatting technique. That's just pure text rather than a bunch of bolded stuff and italics and so forth. All right, so then this is going to be, we have a clear audience, clear goal, clear format. It's concrete constraints, and it's built-in quality or scope control because we're telling it what we want it to do. And a partial response here is something that looks like this. It's telling me the 9 steps, who's in charge, and what kind of risks we have for each of the items. Now this is a plan I can iterate on, right, and get something I really agree on, and it's shortcut many iterations from that vague initial prompt that we started with. So again, I don't expect this to be relevant for your jobs, but this is an example of how you might be more precise and get a better answer because of it. Okay, so this was the prompt piece. Now I want to talk about human in the loop. We talk about the loop because the loop is that iteration process where you ask a question, you get a response, you ask another question, you get a response. If you are not an actual thinking human in the loop, then you're going to go down the rabbit hole, the AI is going to be in control, and you won't actually get a quality result back. So as the human in the loop, you need to have a process where you plan and define exactly what it is you're trying to accomplish. And I do this before I put anything in the prompt, in the chat. Then go ahead and use AI to generate a first draft. You review that, make sure that it's true and correct, that the policy matches, the tone matches, it's compliant with what you need to be compliant with. Revise and request changes, and then that's where you're adding your expertise in your field, right? Your human part. You ask again, you get another result, and you loop back, and you keep doing that until you prove, because you agree that the final version you ended up with is what you want. And for me, I usually get about 90%. I copy it out of there, and then in my own editor, I finish with what I want, because that's faster than trying to coerce it into rewriting the document exactly the way I want it. Seem like a reasonable process you could follow? Have you already adopted processes like this? Some of you? Got some yes and some no? Okay. All right, now getting started. Now, you are somewhere on your journey to using generative AI. If you haven't used it yet, chatgpt.openai.com, right? Or gemini.google.com. Log in and start chatting with it. Don't do anything relevant or important to begin with. Just get a feel for how it works. If you're already using it, then great. Add another way to use it. Once you're comfortable with using it a little bit, then pick something that you do that's repetitive. And maybe it's like me with my email generation, right? It's repetitive. I don't like trying to be formal and being careful about the way that I write things in my messages. So I picked that, and I used that for a while and got used to using it to generate my email text for me. And then keep that scope small, which means you're not trying to do like a day's work in an hour. You're trying to do 10 minutes work in 5 minutes. And you do that several times a day, and you're saving 10 or 20 minutes a day. Now you're getting some of your time back. If you're already doing that, pick another repetitive task and do that. Make sure as you're going along that you're keeping track of your prompts. I actually have a whole bunch of files on my computer that are just the prompts I sent in and some of the responses that have come back. Just in order to try to make it so that I can go back, and the next time I do that task, it's quicker because I already have the wrapper prompt for what I want to do. Now, here's a little bit harder part for me, but you should be logging what works. If you have prompts that don't work, maybe you want to get rid of them and replace them with the more recent prompts you found that do work. Keep track of the things that are giving you good results. And then it would be useful for you to try to keep track of the time saved. And you're probably not going to keep a little spreadsheet every time you used AI and how much it reduced your time, but keep track, at least roughly, if it's helping you or not. This makes a good business case for the more training and more application of it. And maybe it's a good business case for your organization buying a license for you to get better access to better tools, if you can show that it's actually valuable to the organization overall because you're more productive. Okay? All right. So I think, yeah, I'm standing between you and lunch now. It's 12:01. I didn't finish on time. So experiment, but always keep it within safe boundaries, okay? And recap. So AI is a tool. It's not a threat to you. It's not magic. It's a tool that you can get the most out of it if you use it properly. So use it safely. Go for practical wins and saving your time. And make sure you pick the right tool, the right tool for the task. Make sure you give it credit where it deserves credit. All right. So if you wanted a copy of my notes, that QR code would take you to my online document. All right. I ran out of time. I ran over time. So I would be happy to field questions if there are any, or we could do those after we break.
I think we'll break.
All right. Thanks, Scott.